Welcome to Tatak Pula, kwento ng mga manunulat ng bayan. Isang podcast na pinag-uusapan ang realidad at hamon na hinaharap ng masa, partikular sa mga human rights violations at social civic movement. Ako si Ann, and together with me are my fellow Gen Z human rights watchers.
Ako si Jo at kasama namin ang aming mga kapwa estudyante sa unang episode ng Tatak Lang.
Ako naman si Ira, Fun Communication Arts.
At ako si Micaela, isang communication arts din na galing sa DLSU.
And in today's episode, pag-uusapan natin ang isang controversial na issue na laganap dito sa Pilipinas, ang red tagging. Partikular sa mga journalist at mga activist sa ating bansa.
Tama ka dyan, Ann. So, ang pag-uusapan natin ngayon ay ang historical roots or ano ba yung mga impact nito sa journalism at yung mga initiative na gusto nating mangyari in combating red tagging para makita natin yung bigger picture at magkaroon tayo ng deeper understanding kung bakit kailangan pagtuunan ng pansin ang red tagging, di ba?
Oo nga, Jo. Pero before anything else, anong alam nyo sa red tagging sa panahon natin ngayon?
Ayun, for me, as someone na com art student, medyo bulat ako sa situation ng red tagging kasi tinuturuan kami ng mga profs namin na maging aware. At syempre, kailangan din na alam natin yung nangyayari sa paligid natin. So, ang red tagging is parang form of accusing of someone, especially yung mga taong um, against sa government or against sila sa actions na ginagawa ng government na part ng isang Communist Party or NPA. Yung red tagging parang naging matunog to nung yung ano ni Duterte kasi parang ang dami niyang mga disagreeable na nagawa nung time niya. So yung only way to silence yung mga taong ayaw sa mga ginagawa niya is through red tagging. Isa na dito is Maria Ressa, and yung pinaka-recent na case is yung kay Atom Araujo and yung sa SMNI.
Ako naman, bilang student journalist, hindi na bago sa akin yung terminong red tagging dahil yung publication org ko, lagi siyang nire-red tag. So, yung mga pages namin sa Facebook and Instagram, laging may mga trolls doon na magko-comment na party siya ng NPA, mga komunista yung mga yan, ganon. And sobrang lala ng comments niya to the point na for, I think, 1 to 2 terms, kapag nag-release kami ng article or kahit ng sining, hindi pinapasulatan yung pangalan namin sa credits kasi it's for our safety daw. And kapag kinailangan namin lumabas para magbalita, i-require nila na magsasama kami ng prof or kahit ng senior sa org namin para hindi kami mapahamak. And it's sad kasi ginagawa lang naman namin yung tungkulin namin na magbalita. Pero our lives are being threatened because of those red taggers.
Actually, Mika, ano rin, kasi dun sa na-share din ni Mika, is parte rin ako ng isang media organization dito sa DLSU at isa sa mga kinover talaga naming napaka-political na situation nung elections before. Sobrang heated talaga ng previous elections eh. Talagang yung page rin namin dinagsa ng mga trolls, ng mga nagre-red tag. And talagang nangingibabaw na siya ngayon, especially since karamihan ng mga Pilipino ay online na. So parang talagang mas bumibilis yung takbo ng pagtatag ng mga tao dahil lang, red tagging ng mga tao dahil lang nag-express sila ng opinion nila o kaya hindi sila nag-agree sa status quo natin ngayon. Kaya parang talagang yung sagot nila Mika and nila Ira, talagang makikita mo rin talaga siya hindi lang sa isang sitwasyon na hindi lang taga-harap-harapan, pero even the sphere of like online and like social media, talaga nangingibabaw siya ngayon.
Mm-mm.
So, sa tingin ko, nangyayari siya kapag parang feel ng government na threat yung sasabihin or mababasa ng tao. Kasi sobrang, kung titignan natin, yung government naman talaga is kinokontrol yung media. So, nakakatakot din, kagaya nung kay Mika nga, na parang hindi nila kailangan ilagay yung pangalan nila for safety. Kasi ang daming pwede mangyari, hindi mo alam kung anong pwede mangyari sa'yo. So, nakakatakot siya. Nakakatakot talaga.
And in a way rin parang ano since nandun tayo sa topic din ng mga like manipulation ng media, syempre makikita natin dito yung nabanggit din ni Ira about like SMNI. So, talagang nangingibabaw siya currently. Pero ibabase rin natin sa pananaliksik o ang kaligiran ng issue na 'to. Ang red tagging ay isang prevalent issue that spans decades worth of harassment and violence. Noong post-World War II, may takot at poot sa communist ideologies and movement sa Western states. So mga miyembro ng pamahalaan ng mga bansang 'to ay nagko-call out ng mga alleged quote-unquote like communist terrorist threat.
So, noong panahon kasi na, may panahon sa Pilipinas na umusbong yung fear of communism at talagang nag-grow siya, lumago. Lalo na sa mga institutionalized forms or contempt sa gobyerno noong 1969. So, halimbawa nito ay yung Communist Party of the Philippines or New People's Army or yung CPP or yung NPA. So, since then, na-form yung red tagging without the proper basis kung bakit ba talaga na-red tag ang person. At it has become prevalent in the PH. So, along with that, so, syempre may mga disinformation and public intimidation. So, ginagawa to upang makontra nga ng government yung criticism and yung dissent.
And Joe, like to add to rin to what you said, like usually yung biktima ng like red tagging ay mga activists, journalists, and like critics of the government, pati yung mga left-leaning individuals. Kaya madalas nababanggit yung communism, ganyan. And noong presidency naman ni Duterte, nagkaroon ng Anti-Terrorism Act na nagsasagawa ng surveillance, arrest, and detention without judicial proceedings ng alleged terrorists and rebels. Aside from this, na-form din yung National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict or NTF, ELCAC or LCA. Ayan.
Masasabi talaga natin nung panahon nung administration ni Duterte, doon talaga lumala yung red tagging. Kasi parang hinikayat yung mga pulis, yung mga batas militar na i-torture or mag-red tag ng mga journalists na ginagamit lang naman nila yung kanilang freedom of expression para i-call out or i-criticize yung pamahalaan natin.
Yeah, at sa kabila nito, marami ring mga pagbabago at mga initiatives na nabuo sa kalagitnaan ng mga issue na to. Like even before, alam naman natin na nagkaroon ng cases nung Ampatuan, massacre, and like, syempre, like gaya nga na nabanggit noon, matagal na rin talagang natatarget ang mga journalist sa bansa natin. At at yun, dahil nangyayari tong mga to, may mga programs na itinataguyod upang matulungan ng mga journalist at kanilang mga pamilya. Currently kasi ngayon din, mas sinisiyasat na ng kabataan ang press freedom din, like to add to that. At mas nagiging critical na rin ng taong bayan, lalo na sa prevalence and disinformation. Like, syempre of course, meron pa rin talagang, marami pa rin members ng community natin na talaga na nadadala pa rin. Pero ngayon nagiging usapin na rin siya. And from there, nagkakaroon din ng mga programa.
At yun nga, dahil nga sa red tagging, parang nagkaroon ng mga developing movements such as yung Freedom Fund for Filipino Journalists. So, in short, FFJ. Itong programa na to it seeks to protect the journalists. If familiar kayo kay case ni Edgar Damelerio, ayun.
Siya yung isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit nabuo ang FFFJ program. So, kasi at mas marami pa tayong malalaman sa pagkabuo ng programang ito. Base sa interview natin kay Miss Melinda De Jesus, siya ang naging founder ng programang ito. Kaya ayan, ito ang kanyang interview.
Freedom Fund for Filipino Journalists. It was to assist to assist those who are being censored, who are being besieged, who are being killed, work with the victims, work with their survivors, etc. We were engaged in the Ampatuan, helping the Ampatuan families file their cases in courts, etc. I don't know, even know if you remember the Ampatuan massacre when 32 journalists were killed in one spot. It was been recorded in the world as the single bloodiest strike against journalists. Global, right? What do? We issue collective statements or single statements, whatever is that we are able to work at. We express solidarity. We get ourselves interviewed about what we think so that certain things are immediately out in the news that CMFR and other organizations, their particular stand on a particular thing. Because sometimes it just has to get out there to be able to check the attack, to be able to draw the line, to put the red line and say, hanggang dito lang kayo. And that, to me, I think we have been quite effective, because Spencer will probably tell you all the different other times in which we tried to do campaigns, what we call campaigns and advocacy against undue censorship, because there is censorship sometimes that is within the organization. You will say, no, let's not go there first because 1, 2, 3, we don't have a complete story. And some people will think that that is censorship. Okay, so censorship and what we call self-regulation, sometimes we have to be able to understand each case as it occurs. That's what we do. I think we could do more if we needed to, and if we had the means, and if society supported us more. We don't really get that much support. They are there and they complain. And then when we say, society has to be engaged in the work that we do. Students like yourself. And that's why I take a little time, to try and be in touch with you and give you the long and the bigger picture of it. Okay?
Okay po.
All right.
So, about the FFJ program, so po, based from our research, you had a program called Freedom Fund for Filipino journalists. So, what are the short-term and long-term goals of that program po?
Okay. FFFJ is no longer. Okay. That's been officially, it is no longer working. Why? Because it ran out of money, or it ran out of, people, the energy of it. Just it evolved into, when Duterte attacked the press, again started attacking the press, then okay, let me just say one thing. The FFFJ kind of lost steam because of the length of time that the case of the Ampatuan, the trial of the Ampatuan was going on. That was like 10 years before they got the first decision. And in that period of waiting, FFFJ, of course, began to say, is this all we can do? Is wait. In the meantime, all other kinds of needs, the the Arab Spring, the other developments in the world, huge things happening. Also, funding went to all of those needs. Just as Ukraine funding is draining the needs, the funding that could go to the kind of work that we do. And of course, we don't compete with that because those are huge human tragedies, right? So from FFFJ, it is now FMFA. And FMFA is much more limited. We're not even registering it. FFFJ was a registered organization, but we found that registration costs money, and deregistering it also costs money. You have to get a lawyer to write up the papers, etc., etc. The requirements of City Hall cost money. So to be an operating organization, you have to spend money. So now we ourselves are FMFA now, all right? It has the same, but we are not raising funding together because that then needs a more technically developed organization, which it does not want to be. It is an advocacy and campaign organization.
We can really see na may struggle within the government in safeguarding the rights and the democratic principles of these individuals, gaya ng mga journalists at pati na rin yung mga activists na talagang parang talagang hinaharap nila yung at talagang binibigyan nila ginagamit nila yung platform nila para ma-call out o at least madala sa taong bayan kung ano ba ang nangyayari sa komunidad natin.
Tama, kaya importante din talaga na maging vigilant tayo kasi kailangan natin tong ma-uphold ang democracy and yung human rights ng bawat tao. Kasi kaya as a student at kaugnay na rin ng sarili nating mga larangan at kurso, sa tingin nyo, paano natin ma-address ang ongoing issue na to?
Ayun, as a com-art student nga, mahalaga talaga yung education and advocacy through raising awareness. Kasi nakikita naman natin especially today na malala yung misinformation sa online and offline. Kaya nga nasabi ni Ann kanina na itatype mo lang tas enter mo lang yung comment mo, makikita na ng lahat and mabilis ka maka-red tag ng isang tao. So, mostly ng mga tao hindi alam kung gaano nakakaapekto yung red tagging sa society natin.
Bilang communication art students and as a future media practitioner, ang magagawa ko siguro is to teach the people through media na matutong mag-fact check. Kasi itong red tagging issue na to, nagsimula siya sa fake news at sa mga taong hindi marunong mag-fact check. So we're just saying the truth about those politicians na binoto nila at dahil sa ang akala nila hindi totoo ang mga binabalita natin. And kung mapapansin nyo, pati yung mga gobyerno din natin mismo, sila mismo yung nangiipit sa mga nagsasabi lang naman ng totoo, sa mga nagsasabi lang sa mga nagbabalita lang. So, kaya syempre, ang mas paniniwalaan ng mga tao is yung gobyerno natin. So, dahil sa hindi sila marunong mag-fact check, nauwi ang mga ito sa red tagging.
Totoo nga, sobrang totoo ng tama yung dapat mag-fact check ka. Kasi hindi mo sigurado kung lahat ba ng lumalabas online is totoo talaga. So, recently parang naging prevalent na rin yung talagang mag-fact check kasi ayun nga, importante na dapat totoo yung information na napagkukunan natin or reliable source ba siya, totoo ba siya. Ayun. Kasi ang daming ang trolls within the internet and maaaring ginawa lang to ng mga troll para i-distract yung tao with the real information na hindi natin alam kung ano bang tinatago or totoo.
And to add rin dyan, since nabanggit niyo yung parang nabanggit ni Ari yung misinformation and of course like yung disinformation din na pag-usapan natin kanina, especially with the atmosphere that we have online now. And yung nabanggit din ni Mika na fact check. Like marrying all of this together, di ba? Parang, ano rin kasi, yung sources natin, or at least kung ano yung media outlets, or at least mga media platforms na kinokonsume natin, we have to be critical of where we get our news. So, minsan kasi parang may dadaan sa FYP mo sa TikTok o meron kang makikitang mga YouTubers that na kapag the way they construct their videos about sa mga pangyayari ngayon sa gobyerno, parang instead of it being formed as like a form of journalism talaga na pinepresenta ang balita as objectively as they can or as fact-based as they can, meron pa rin talagang tone or may bias pa rin. And siguro mahirap kasing pigilan ng bias sa media dahil sa likod ng bawat media outlet meron silang mga stakeholders, meron silang mga lineage talaga. And tayo kailangan natin maging critical sa kung saan natin nakukuha yung balita natin. Like, hindi lang tayo dapat nagre-rely sa isang outlet, try rin nating tingnan to. Itong influencer na to, talaga bang prene-present niya ng maayos o parang nagiging may tone din siya na mas malapit siya sa ganitong klaseng political bias. So ayun, kailangan natin mas maging vigilant na rin talaga sa kung saan natin nakukuha yung balita natin. At ayun, diyan din nagtatapos ang ating like usapin pagdating sa sa introduction ng issue na to sa ating lipunan, pati na rin ang pananaw ng kabataan pagdating sa issue ng red tagging sa panahon ngayon. Pati na rin ang sitwasyon nito noon pa. Kaya ayan, maraming salamat sa aming mga tagapakinig at kita-kits sa susunod naming episode dito sa Tatak Pula, kwento ng mga manunulat ng bayan.
Muli ako si Jo.
At ako naman si Ira.
At ako naman si Mika.
At ako si Ann at ito ang Tatak Pula, kwento ng mga manunulat ng bayan.